On the 49th wave of Operation True Promise 4, Iran did something it had not done in 48 previous waves. It introduced a missile that does not need a human operator once it launches. No ground station, no controller, no pilot. The missiles in the salvo communicate with each other in mid-flight, assign roles, identify threats, send decoys, forward to absorb interceptor fire, and punch a corridor open for the warheads behind them. The weapon is called the Paveh. Iran held it in reserve for 48 consecutive waves of missile strikes. It chose Wave 49, targeting 3 American military installations simultaneously to reveal it for the first time in combat. In the next 13 minutes, I'm going to break down exactly what this missile is, what it can do, what the verified evidence actually shows, and why its introduction changes the mathematics of air defense in this conflict entirely. Let's get into it. First, the basics, because there is a significant amount of misinformation circulating about this weapon on both sides. The Paveh is an Iranian-developed land attack cruise missile. It is the third generation in a lineage that Iran has been quietly building since 2015. Generation 1 was the Sumar, unveiled in 2015, operational range of approximately 700 kilometers. It was Iran's first serious attempt at a domestically produced cruise missile capability. Generation 2 was the Hovizeh, introduced in 2019 with an extended range of approximately 1,350 kilometers. This represented a significant jump, bringing American military installations across the Gulf within strike range from Iranian soil. Generation 3 is the Paveh, range of approximately 1,650 kilometers, turbojet-powered, flying at speeds between 800 and 900 kilometers per hour. The IRGC Aerospace Force publicly unveiled the Paveh on February 24, 2023. Brigadier General Amir Ali Hajizadeh, then commander of the IRGC Aerospace Force, announced it during a televised broadcast on Iranian state television. That is an important date to remember. Iran publicly revealed this weapon in February 2023. The conflict began February 28, 2026. Iran had 3 full years to integrate this missile into its operational plans before firing a single one in combat. That is not improvisation, that is preparation. Now, here's where we need to separate verified fact from Iranian state claims, because the two are not always the same thing. What is verified? The missile exists. Its debris has been physically recovered. The UAE Ministry of Defense displayed recovered Paveh wreckage alongside a Qayyam ballistic missile at a press briefing in Abu Dhabi. We are not dealing with a theoretical weapon. Its components are sitting on a table. The range figure of 1,750 kilometers, consistent with independent assessments, including from the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency. The low-altitude flight profile, verified through radar tracking data, and the specific challenge it presented to Gulf air defense networks during this wave. What is an Iranian claim, not yet independently verified? The degree of stealth shaping in the airframe. Iran claims a reduced radar cross-section. Independent confirmation of exactly how reduced remains limited. The full extent of the cooperative engagement capability, which I will cover in detail in the next section. We deal in evidence here. Keep that distinction clear. This is the capability that separates the Paveh from every other weapon Iran has fired in 48 prior waves. And it is the capability that every air defense planner in the region is now reassessing. Here is how it works, based on what Iran has disclosed and what the behavioral patterns of this wave confirm. The Paveh missiles within a single salvo do not operate independently. They communicate with each other in flight using a data link system embedded in the missile itself. One missile within the salvo is designated the formation leader. That leader navigates the group toward the target, monitors the threat environment along the route, and makes tactical decisions in real time. Here's the critical part. If the formation encounters active air defense coverage along the route, radar lock, interceptor launch, tracking signals, the lead missile does not simply continue forward. It designates one or more missiles in the group as sacrificial decoys. Those decoys accelerate. They move ahead of the formation deliberately. They trigger the radar. They force the air defense system to commit interceptors. They absorb the defensive fire. And the remaining warhead-carrying missiles fly through the gap that the decoys created. No human on the ground is making these decisions. The swarm manages itself. Now, let me be precise about what this means and what it does not mean, because overclaiming in either direction is a failure of analysis. What this does mean: air defense systems designed to track, target, and intercept individual missiles, or even simultaneous salvos of individually acting missiles, or are facing a fundamentally different problem when the missiles in a salvo are coordinating their own decoy tactics. The Patriot PAC-3 interceptor costs approximately $4 million per round. The SM-6 interceptor costs approximately $4.8 million per round. When a defender fires a $4 million interceptor at a missile whose entire purpose was to be intercepted, a decoy sent forward to die, the cost exchange immediately favors the attacker. Iran fired the Paveh in 3 separate time-delayed salvos in Wave 49. Not one launch, 3 consecutive launches, spaced apart deliberately. The reason is straightforward. 1 launch, 1 burst of defensive fire, and it is over. Defenders can manage it in a single engagement window. 3 salvos means the air defense systems across the region must stay activated, stay tracking, and keep burning through interceptors for the entire duration of all 3 launches. By the time the 3rd salvo arrives, interceptor magazines have been partially depleted by the first 2. The defensive math shifts with every round expended. What this does not mean, the Paveh is not invincible. Cruise missiles flying at subsonic speeds, 800 to 900 kilometers per hour, are slower than ballistic missiles during terminal phase. They are trackable, they have been intercepted. The UAE confirmed intercepting all 8 cruise missiles in this wave. That interception rate matters. But it also cost interceptors that cannot be instantly replaced, and it required the full activation of air defense networks across the Gulf for the entire duration of the attack. The resource equation is the point. Here is the context that significantly changes how you should understand this weapon's introduction. The U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency has identified the Paveh as functionally identical to the Quds cruise missile, the same weapon that Houthi forces in Yemen have been operating under a different designation. And that version of this missile was used operationally in September 2019 in the coordinated drone and cruise missile strike on Saudi Aramco oil facilities at Ab Qaik and Khurais. That strike temporarily knocked out approximately 5% of global oil supply. It was, at the time, one of the most consequential precision strikes on energy infrastructure in modern history. Iran publicly denied involvement in 2019. They did not publicly acknowledge the Paveh existed until 2023. What this tells us is important for 2 reasons. First, this missile system has been operationally tested and refined through real combat use for nearly 7 years before Iran deployed it directly under its own flag in this conflict. Second, Iran deliberately concealed the weapon's existence and its operational track record for years before revealing it. That pattern of concealment and deliberate disclosure is itself strategically significant. Iran is not revealing everything it has at once. It is managing what the other side knows, and when they know it. Which brings us to the most important question this weapon's introduction raises, and it is a question neither Washington nor Tel Aviv has publicly answered. Most coverage of this conflict frames Iran's missile campaign as desperation, a country burning through its stockpile, throwing everything at a wall, hoping something lands. The operational pattern across 49 waves tells a different story. And if you are doing serious analysis, the pattern matters more than any single wave. Wave 1 through approximately wave 25, Iran relied primarily on its ballistic missile inventory. Fata, hypersonics, Khorramshahr, heavy ballistic missiles, IMOD and Quadr variants, high, fast, visible to radar early, volume-based saturation. Around wave 26, Iran introduced cluster warhead configurations on the IMOD and Quadr platforms, a deliberate upgrade in payload capability introduced mid-campaign, not at the start. Later waves, the Khorramshahr with 2-ton class warheads. IRGC Aerospace Commander Majid Musavi publicly confirmed a doctrine shift. No missile would be launched carrying a warhead under 1 metric ton. The shift from volume to mass. Wave 49, the Paveh, cooperative engagement. Autonomous swarm coordination, low altitude, reduced radar cross-section. Each introduction is spaced, each capability is revealed in a chosen moment, not all at once. This is not the behavior of a military running out of options. This is arsenal management, deliberate, sequenced escalation designed to keep the other side continuously recalibrating. Israel's military has claimed that IDF and U.S. strikes have destroyed approximately 75% of Iran's missile launchers, roughly 300 units. If that figure is accurate, Iran is conducting Wave 49 with the remaining 25% of its known launcher inventory. That remaining quarter has proven sufficient to sustain operations, introduce new platforms, and maintain offensive pressure across the entire Gulf region. One of 2 conclusions follows from this. Either the 75% figure accurately reflects the known inventory, and Iran's remaining capacity is larger than anticipated, or Iran's actual launcher count, including mobile transporter erector launchers concealed inside underground missile complexes in Kermanshah and Semnan provinces, was significantly larger than Israeli intelligence estimated before the conflict began. Neither conclusion is strategically comfortable for the side that made the 75% claim. And here's the question that should be on every analyst's desk right now. If Iran held the Paveh in reserve for 48 waves, if it introduced cluster warheads at wave 26, heavier payloads around wave 30, and autonomous swarm coordination at wave 49, what else has not been introduced yet? That is not a rhetorical question. That is an open intelligence problem. And as of the date of this video, it does not have a public answer. On March 9th, IRGC Aerospace Force Commander Brigadier General Majid Musavi made a public declaration on Iranian state television. From that point forward, he stated, no missile would be launched carrying a warhead lighter than 1 metric ton. Frequency would increase, intensity would increase, range would expand. The Paveh does not carry a 1-ton warhead. The Paveh is a cruise missile. Its warhead is conventional high explosive. Its value is range, low observability, precision, and that cooperative swarm logic, not raw explosive mass. So we have a publicly announced doctrine requiring warheads above 1 ton, and simultaneously weapon deployment that falls outside that stated doctrine. There are 2 possible readings. Reading 1. Mousavi's 1-ton rule applies exclusively to the ballistic missile force targeting hardened infrastructure. Cruise platforms like the Paveh operate under a separate tactical authority with a separate mandate: precision penetration, not mass destruction. Reading 2. Iran is making public declarations about one doctrine while executing a different one. Both readings lead to the same conclusion. Iran's operational playbook is more layered and more flexible than its public statements suggest. What Iran announces and what Iran does are not always the same briefing. That gap between announcement and action is itself an intelligence signal worth tracking. Let's talk about what this means practically for the air defense networks currently operating across the Gulf. For 48 waves, those networks were dealing with a known problem set. Ballistic missiles arc high. They are visible to radar early. Interceptors can be launched with sufficient lead time. The engagement geometry, while challenging, is a solved problem for Patriot and THAAD systems. Cruise missiles flying at treetop level on unpredictable low-altitude paths present a different geometry. Radar coverage that tracks ballistic trajectories has reduced effectiveness at very low altitudes. Terrain masking, earth curvature, and radar horizon limitations all reduce detection range. Add autonomous cooperative engagement, missiles in the same salvo coordinating decoy deployment without any human controller, and the defensive challenge shifts from a tracking problem to a decision problem. You're no longer just tracking individual missiles. You're trying to determine, in real time, which missiles in a coordinated swarm are decoys and which are warheads before committing your limited interceptors. The Khorramshahr with a 2-ton warhead traveling at Mach 16 during terminal phase is a physics problem. High speed, high mass, narrow engagement window. The Paveh swarm is a decision problem. Which one is real? How many interceptors do you commit before the next salvo arrives? These are not the same problem. And a defense architecture optimized for one is not automatically optimized for the other. Every Gulf state air defense planner is recalibrating right now. That recalibration takes time and resources. Iran knows this. Here's where we land after an honest assessment of the evidence. The Paveh is real. Its debris is in Abu Dhabi. Its operational lineage goes back to the 2019 Aramco strike. Its cooperative engagement capability represents a genuine escalation in autonomous weapon coordination. Not science fiction, but a documented shift in how Iran's missile salvos operate. Iran introduced it at a chosen moment after 48 waves, when both sides had already settled into predictable patterns of attack and defense. The interception rates look impressive on paper. The UAE reports all 8 cruise missiles in this wave were stopped. Those numbers should be taken seriously. Gulf air defense networks have performed considerably better than many pre-war assessments predicted. But intercept rates and interceptor costs are 2 different metrics, and the resource math of this campaign is not being discussed loudly enough in public analysis. Iran is not trying to break through the shield in one shot. It is trying to tire it out, methodically, wave by wave, platform by platform. And the core question that remains unanswered as of this video is the same question I raised earlier. Iran held the Paveh for 48 waves. What is it holding for wave 50? That is the briefing. Sources used in this video are linked in the description. Reuters, Associated Press, Institute for the Study of War, and UAE Ministry of Defense official statements. If a claim in this video is wrong, I will say so in the next one. That is how this channel works. Subscribe if you want analysis built on evidence, not on which side you want to win. Next video. The Strait of Hormuz closure, what it actually costs the global economy per day, and why the emergency reserve release is not solving the problem.